There is a beach in Scotland, further north than Moscow, that keeps showing up on the same best beaches in the world lists as Puerto Rico and Brazil. White sand, Caribbean turquoise water, and a maximum water temperature of 14 degrees Celsius. Houses nearby starting at £140,000. That is the Scottish Outer Hebrides. This is the United Kingdom, where 19,491 miles of coastline wrap around two main islands, and most British people have experienced a fraction of 1% of it. Everyone knows the usual names: Brighton's Pebbles, Blackpool's Arcades, and Cornwall in August when the M5 turns into a car park. But scattered across these islands are beach towns so geologically impossible, so historically violent, and so visually unrecognisable as Britain, that they shatter every assumption about this country. The beach at the top of this list was named the 13th best beach in the world, scoring 5 out of 5, and it shares its latitude with Alaska. Like this video if you have ever looked at a photo of a UK beach and assumed it was taken in Thailand. Subscribe, because this video finds the places that the tourist boards somehow forgot to advertise. Let us get into it. Number 15. Saunton Sands, Devon. On the 14th of June 1987, a designer named Storm Thorgerson positioned 700 wrought iron hospital beds across this beach for what became the album cover of Pink Floyd's A Momentary Lapse of Reason. Tom Cruise filmed alien invasion sequences on this same sand. The RAF still practices beach landings here with C-130 aircraft. And between 1943 and 1944, over 10,000 American GIs trained on this stretch for D-Day because the sand, gradient and tidal range matched Omaha Beach exactly. Saunton sits on the North Devon coast near Braunton. At low tide, the sea pulls back 500 metres, uncovering 2.5 million square metres of sand across a 5.6 kilometre stretch. Braunton Burrows backs the beach, the largest sand dune system in England at about 1,000 hectares, carrying UNESCO Biosphere Reserve status alongside Yellowstone. Devon and Cornwall's hottest ever temperature was recorded right here, 35.4 degrees on the 3rd of August 1990. 30 workers hauled every one of those 700 beds from London for the Floyd shoot, and each bed required 2 people to carry. 6 hours went into positioning them. Rain swept across the beach. Every bed had to come down, and the crew returned 2 weeks later to start over. One test bed left overnight vanished completely by morning. The budget blew past $500,000. Thorgerson described it as madness to do it at all, but we had in fact to do it twice because it rained suddenly the first time. What most people miss is the military history. This beach served as the US Assault Training Center for 8 months, selected because it matched Omaha in every measurable respect. Concrete mock landing craft from that era remain visible and were recently listed by the government. Brigadier General Paul W. Thompson said, "If Waterloo was won on the playing fields of Eton, surely the sands of the North Devon beaches contributed importantly to the success of the assault over the Normandy beaches." Other filming credits include Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, The Witcher Season 2, Operation Mincemeat with Colin Firth, and the Robbie Williams Angels video. Number 14. Chanonry Point, Black Isle, Scotland. Europe's best land-based dolphin watching spot sits on a beach next to a golf course in the Scottish Highlands. Wild bottlenose dolphins hunt within metres of shore, and they happen to be the most northerly resident bottlenose dolphins on the planet, as well as the largest anywhere on Earth, reaching 4 metres long and 350 kilograms. And that beach where you stand to watch them is the exact spot where Scotland's answer to Nostradamus was burned alive in a spiked tar barrel during the 17th century. Chanonry Point lies between Fortrose and Rosemarkie, just 14 miles from Inverness. NatureScott's 2024 data puts the dolphin population at 224 to 226 individuals. Dolphin tourism generates at least £4 million annually and supports over 200 full-time equivalent jobs. Dolphins appear on more than 80% of days between April and December. Kenneth Mackenzie, the Bran seer, born around 1650 on the Isle of Lewis, was executed at Chanonry Point on orders of Lady Seaforth after predicting her husband's infidelity. Predictions attributed to him that reportedly came true include the Caledonian Canal and the Battle of Culloden in 1746. Scholars debate whether he existed as a single historical figure, but the memorial stone stands right there, and the dolphins are definitely real. Summer brings extreme congestion. A drone ban took effect in 2019, and swimming is dangerous with helicopter rescues happening more than occasionally. Number 13. Studland Bay, Dorset. Second World War tanks rest on the seabed. Seahorses breed in underwater meadows. Britain's most famous nudist beach runs along the shore, chalk stacks that once connected to the Isle of Wight Tower above the water. Churchill, King George VI, and Eisenhower stood on this sand to plan D-Day, and in March of 2025, beavers entered the water here in England's first ever wild release. Studland sits about 5 miles south of Poole, drawing over 1.5 million visitors annually. Old Harry rocks formed between 84 and 72 million years ago, and once connected to the Needles on the Isle of Wight through a continuous chalk ridge. Old Harry's wife, the companion stack, collapsed in 1896. The seahorse recovery here tells an incredible story. Studland remains the only confirmed breeding site for long-snouted seahorses in the UK. Boat anchor damage drove the count from 40 in 2008 down to a single seahorse in 2014. Conservation teams installed 87 eco-moorings, and by 2024, a single survey recorded 33 seahorses. 2 pairs of beavers released at Little Sea in March 2025 represented the first licensed wild beaver release in England. In April 1944, Exercise Smash brought 10,000 men for live firing drills. 6 amphibious tanks sank during Smash 1, killing 6 soldiers. Those tanks still sit on the seabed at about 15 metres and now attract divers. Smash 3 drew Churchill, King George VI, and Eisenhower as observers. The National Trust designates nearly 900 metres of Knoll Beach as clothing optional, their only officially sanctioned naturist beach. Enid Blyton based Toy Town from the Noddy books on Studland. D-Day to Noddy to nudism to seahorses, that is the range this one bay covers. Number 12. Bamburgh, Northumberland. 414 people live in this village. Looming over them sits one of the largest inhabited castles in the country, spreading 9 acres across a 150-foot volcanic crag. Bamburgh served as the ancient capital of the Kingdom of Northumbria, hosted the first castle in the world to fall to gunpowder, and became the literary home of Sir Lancelot, which magazine named it Britain's best seaside destination 3 years running. The Armstrong family has owned the castle since 1894, purchasing it for £60,000. In 1464, during the Wars of the Roses, it became the first castle to fall to gunpowder artillery. Thomas Mallory identified it as Joyous Guard, Sir Lancelot's castle. Anyone who has watched Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny or Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves has already seen Bamburgh on screen. The Grace Darling story carries a different kind of weight. On the 7th of September 1838, the paddle steamer SS Forfarshire struck Big Harcar Rock in a gale. Grace Darling, just 22, and her father rowed a 21-foot boat nearly a mile through storm conditions and rescued 9 survivors. 43 people died. Grace became the first recipient of the RNLI Silver Medal, and Queen Victoria wrote to her personally with a £50 gift. Fan letters requesting locks of her hair arrived so frequently that her family worried she would lose all of it. Tuberculosis took her at 26. Her memorial sits positioned so passing ships can see it. Sold property prices in Bamburgh range from £500,268 to £613,750 for a village of 414 people with no supermarket. Number 11. Robin Hood's Bay, North Yorkshire. Local legend holds that a bale of silk could travel from the bottom of this village to the top without ever seeing daylight, passed through underground tunnels, trapdoors, false walls, and hidden cupboards. Fishermen, farmers, vicars, and school teachers all took part in smuggling. Smugglers' wives dumped boiling water from upper windows onto excise men, and the village is slowly falling into the sea. Robin Hood's Bay clings to cliffs 6 miles south of Whitby. The 2021 census counted 410 residents, down from 1,204 in 1851. An October 1779 raid on the Fisherman's Arms turned up 200 casks of brandy and gin, 150 sacks of tea, and a small armoury, and that's when the story gets better, because the revenue officers guarding the hall fell asleep. Locals alerted the smugglers, who returned and stole every last item back. Workmen in the 1960s uncovered a trapdoor leading to a hand-dug passage connecting houses. Erosion eats roughly 0.3 metres per year. Houses have dropped off the cliff over centuries. An 1886 Spectator article noted that the road fell away and is gone forever. Only about 5 properties in the lower village still house permanent residents. Local business owner Katie Wallace put it plainly. There's becoming so few locals now, there's hardly enough people to help run the shops and restaurants. Daniel Day-Lewis filmed scenes from Phantom Thread in the village. The first 5 entries are dramatic and visually striking, but they look like Britain. Starting now, the ranking moves into territory where you genuinely cannot accept that you are in the UK. The data gets stranger from here. Number 10. Kynance Cove, Cornwall. Stand on this beach and you are standing on the Earth's mantle. Not the crust, the mantle. These rocks once sat 10 kilometres below the surface, beneath an ancient ocean floor, forced upward when 2 continental plates collided over 375 million years ago. Green and red formations striped like snakeskins surround you. A blowhole called the Devil's Bellows snorts at half tide. A study of over 66,000 Instagram posts named it the UK's most beautiful beach. And the water runs Caribbean turquoise. Kynance Cove sits on the Lizard Peninsula, roughly 2 miles from Lizard Point, the southernmost tip of the British mainland. The Geological Society of London describes the rock as part of the mantle rather than the crust, a section that was once at 30 degrees south of the equator and drifted across it about 250 million years ago. BBC's Poldark used Kynance as a primary location. House of the Dragon filmed here for seasons 1 and 2. And here is the detail that pushes this beach into truly bizarre territory. Bioluminescent plankton has been confirmed at Kynance Cove. Photographer Richard Haynes described the experience. When you see it light up in the waves, you will never forget it. It looks like electric blue. Best conditions arrive on dark, moonless nights from late spring to early autumn. Not the Caribbean, but Cornwall, and the water glows. Number 9. Abereiddi, Pembrokeshire, Wales. Local fishermen blasted open the seaward wall of a disused slate quarry in 1926, letting the sea rush in and creating what is now a turquoise lagoon 25 metres deep. Red Bull cliff divers launched from 27-metre platforms above it in 2012. A ghost village crumbles into the sea beside it. Fossils on the beach date back 470 million years. And the geological time period those fossils define takes its name from a farmer's cottage on the lane leading to the beach. Abereiddi sits 5 miles from St David's. The vivid turquoise colour comes from copper oxide washing off the rocks and mixing with slate. The fossils embedded here are tuning fork graptolites, 470 to 464 million years old. They are common enough to show up in the shale forming the car park. Countryfile observed that holidaymakers throw them aside to lay down towels, and few know how remarkable these tuning fork-shaped rocks are. Ruins known as the Street, a row of slate houses built for quarry workers, were abandoned after flooding in the early 1900s. Winter storms of 2014 produced overnight land losses exceeding 5 metres. You pick up half-billion-year-old fossils next to a man-made lagoon inside an old quarry, while the ruins of a workers' village crumble into the Celtic Sea. Normal Welsh afternoon. Number 8. Porthcurno, Cornwall. A tiny Cornish hamlet that functioned as one of the most important communications hubs on Earth, while simultaneously hosting a hand-carved cliffside theatre built by one woman over 50 years. During the Second World War, the military restricted the entire valley, defending it with flamethrowers and barbed wire. Rowena Cade, born 1893, bought the headland for £100 in the 1920s. With her gardener, Billy Rawlings, she built the first stage using hand tools and dynamite in 6 months, and the debut performance of The Tempest took place in August 1932. Cade hauled sand and concrete up cliff paths by hand well into her 80s, carving the name of every production into the concrete seats. Today, the Minack Theatre holds 750, draws over 250,000 visitors annually, and stages more than 200 performances a year. Box office records fell in 2019 when gross revenue topped £1 million. June 1870 saw the first international submarine telegraph cable land at Porthcurno, connecting the UK to India. By 1920, it operated as the largest telegraph station in the world, handling 2 million words per day. In 1941, the entire operation moved underground into tunnels, shielded by barbed wire, floodlighting and flamethrowers. Camouflage artists painted trees and birds onto the concrete defences. 6 fibre optic cables still come ashore at Porthcurno today. Number 7. Rhossili Bay, Gower Peninsula, Wales. TripAdvisor ranked this beach 9th best in the world. A 139-year-old shipwreck protrudes from the sand at low tide. A dragon-shaped tidal island traps tourists who misread the tide tables. A memorial inside the local church honours a man who perished with Captain Scott in the Antarctic. And Dylan Thomas got stranded here overnight as a teenager. Rhossili sits at the southwestern tip of the Gower Peninsula, where 3 miles of golden sand stretch beneath Rhossili Down at 633 feet. The Helvetia, a Norwegian vessel built in 1855, wrecked on the 1st of November 1887 while carrying 500 tons of Canadian timber. The wooden skeleton of hull ribs still stands exposed at low tide. Worm's Head takes its name from the Norse worm, meaning dragon, because Vikings believed the tidal island looked like a sea creature. Access opens for only 2.5 hours on each side of low tide. A blowhole produces a booming noise during storms, which apparently sold the Norse on their sleeping dragon theory. Dylan Thomas misjudged the tides as a boy and ended up marooned until midnight. He later called Gower one of the loveliest seacoast stretches in the whole of Britain. The Gower Peninsula earned its protected designation in 1956, making it the first in the entire UK. Number 6. The Singing Sands, Isle of Eigg, Scotland. Walk across bone-dry white quartz sand on this beach, and the ground squeaks, whistles, and sings beneath your feet. Scottish geologist Hugh Miller first described the sound in 1844. Only 33 singing sand beaches exist in all the British Isles, and this particular island also contains a massacre cave where roughly 390 people were suffocated alive. A community that purchased its own land and the world's first community-owned renewable energy grid. Fewer than 100 people live on Eigg. The sand grains must be well sorted, nearly spherical, and free of contamination. When one layer slides over another in unison, the shear generates a frequency of approximately 450 Hz. Any contamination kills the effect entirely. Miller's own 1844 account captured it. I struck it obliquely with my foot where the surface lay dry, which elicited a shrill sonorous note. Around 1577, during a clan feud, roughly 390 inhabitants sheltered inside a cave, and the MacLeods found them, set a fire at the entrance, and suffocated every person inside. A community buyout completed in 1997 when islanders purchased Eigg from absentee landlords. The world's first community-owned renewable energy grid went live in 2008, and in 2020, a fossilised dinosaur bone turned up, marking the first confirmed dinosaur fossil in Scotland outside of Skye. Under 100 residents, singing sand, a massacre cave, community ownership, a renewable energy grid, and a dinosaur fossil. Number 5. Portmeirion, Gwynedd, Wales. One architect spent 50 years building a fantasy Italian village on the Welsh coast. Noel Coward wrote Blithe Spirit here in 5 days. George Harrison celebrated his 50th birthday on the grounds. A cult 1960s TV show still pulls fans from around the world. Property cannot be purchased because a charitable trust owns everything. nobody lives here permanently, and 2026 marks the centenary. Sir Clough Williams-Ellis acquired the site in 1925 for roughly £5,000, renamed it Portmeirion, and began building. The final structure, the toll gate, went up during his 93rd year. Patrick McGoohan created and starred in The Prisoner, 17 episodes first broadcast between 1967 and 1968, using Portmeirion for every exterior shot. Williams-Ellis requested that the village not be identified as the filming location until the credits of the final episode. McGoohan's fictional home now operates as a prisoner-themed souvenir shop. Coward arrived during the Blitz in 1941 and completed Blithe Spirit in 5 days, a play that ran nearly 2,000 West End performances. Frank Lloyd Wright visited in 1956. George Bernard Shaw and H.G. Wells both stayed. After Williams-Ellis died, his family placed some of his ashes inside a marine rocket and launched it in a New Year's Eve firework display over the estuary. Over 200,000 visitors come each year. From the outside, it looks like a village on the Italian Riviera. On the inside, it is Snowdonia, built by a man who turned his own ashes into a firework. Number 4. Lindisfarne, Holy Island, Northumberland. Twice every day, the tide swallows the causeway connecting this island to the mainland, turning it into an unreachable place for several hours. What is widely considered the beginning of the Viking Age happened here in 793 AD. One of the finest illuminated manuscripts ever created was produced on this ground. And between 10 and 20 cars per year still get submerged because drivers ignore the tide tables. Locals call the rescue shelter on the causeway the Idiot Box. Lindisfarne sits 60 miles north of Newcastle. About 180 people live here year-round, while annual visitors reach up to 500,000. At its lowest point, the Causeway Road sits about 3.5 metres above sea level, and an average tide reaches 4.5 metres, which completely covers vehicles. Councillor Gordon Stewart described the pattern. Around 10 to 20 vehicles are stranded on the causeway each year, often with holidaymakers watching their cars and their carefully planned breaks disappear under the water. On the 8th of June 793, roughly 100 warriors in 3 longships attacked the monastery. Monks were killed, drowned, or taken into slavery. Alcuin, a scholar at Charlemagne's court, wrote, "Never before has such terror appeared in Britain as we have now suffered from a pagan race." St. Aidan founded the monastery in 634 or 635. Around the year 700, scribes produced the Lindisfarne Gospels. Sir Edwin Lutyens renovated the castle in the early 1900s for the founder of Country Life magazine. Twice a day, this island disconnects from Britain entirely. The tide drops, the causeway resurfaces, and cars roll on, until someone misjudges the table and the helicopter comes. Number 3. Dunwich, Suffolk. A city matching medieval London in scale, housing 8 parish churches, a royal shipyard, and a population of roughly 5,000 to 6,000 at its peak, has been reduced to a village of about 120 people. Everything else sits underwater. An entire medieval city lies beneath the North Sea, mapped by University of Southampton sonar between 2008 and 2012. Human bones continue falling from eroding cliffs, and locals maintain that you can hear church bells ringing from beneath the waves during storms. The Domesday Book of 1086 recorded Dunwich among England's 10 largest towns. By 1242, it served as Suffolk's largest port. A 3-day storm in 1286 began the catastrophic decline. The sonar survey measured the submerged town at approximately 1.8 square kilometres, close to the size of the City of London, identifying 10 buildings including multiple churches, a friary and a probable town hall, plus 74 potential archaeological sites. All of it rests in less than 10 metres of water, less than a mile from shore. This is the largest medieval underwater site in Europe. Local folklore says you can hear the bells of sunken churches during storms. In 1859, a ship's captain claimed to know his position by hearing a submerged bell. Professor David Sear from the University of Southampton put it starkly. It is a sobering example of the relentless force of nature on our island coastline. H.P. Lovecraft named his fictional Dunwich after this village. One gravestone survives from All Saints' Church, and as of 2022, it sat about 15 feet from the cliff edge. Britain's Atlantis is not a metaphor. Sonar confirmed it. The cliff keeps moving. Number 2. Sandwood Bay, Sutherland, Scotland. A Second World War Spitfire engine lies buried in the sand and occasionally surfaces after storms. A hermit lived nearby for 32 years. A farmer swore he encountered a 7-foot mermaid. Ghostly sailors knock on cottage windows. And reaching this beach requires a 4-mile hike across treeless moorland because there are 0 roads, 0 buildings, and 0 phone signal. Sandwood Bay sits in the far northwest of Scotland, 5 miles south of Cape Wrath. Getting there requires driving to Kinlochbervie, then walking 4 miles each way, totaling 9.4 miles over about 5 hours. From Glasgow, that means over 8 hours to reach one beach. On the 5th of January 1900, farmer Alexander Gunn reported encountering a mermaid of ravishing beauty, 7 feet long with reddish-yellow hair. His collie let out a howl and cringed in terror. Gunn held to that account until his death in 1944. On the 30th of September 1941, Sergeant Michael Kilburn crash-landed a Spitfire onto the beach from 124 Squadron at RAF Castletown, walked away uninjured, and the engine remains in the sand to this day. Hermit James McCrory Smith died in 1999, aged 73, having lived near the beach for 32 years. The Scotsman noted he was not keen on company unless there was the promise of a drink in it, which may account for some of the ghost sightings. TripAdvisor ranked the beach 5th best in the UK. The John Muir Trust purchased the entire 4,703-hectare estate in 1993. Facilities at the beach total 0. No toilets, no water, no phone signal. Sandwood Bay is almost certainly the most beautiful place in Britain that demands the most effort to reach. Number 1. Luskentyre, Isle of Harris, Scotland. TripAdvisor ranked this beach 13th best in the world, named it the UK's best beach outright, and over 1,147 reviews produced a perfect 5 out of 5 score. All of this for a beach sitting at 57 degrees north, further north than Moscow, where the water temperature peaks at 14 degrees Celsius. Wild ponies graze across the dunes, a seasonal cake shed takes payment through an honesty box, and the nearest city lies over 6 hours away. Luskentyre runs roughly 3 miles along the west coast of South Harris in the Outer Hebrides. From Glasgow, total travel time exceeds 6 hours. Here is the detail that explains everything. The sand is not regular mineral sand. It is almost entirely organic material made from crushed shells and coral fragments. This type of sand reflects more light than standard beach sand, and that difference creates tropical turquoise colours over shallow water. The same process produces colour on Caribbean beaches. Minimal river runoff keeps the water clear, and the white seabed amplifies the effect. Condé Nast Traveller wrote, "At the end of a winding road on the wind-battered west coast of the Isle of Harris, you'll find something to make your eyes pop. Luskentyre Beach is a paint splash of brilliant white, surrounded by almost impossibly azure water." One TripAdvisor reviewer captured the reaction. "Luskentyre Beach is the most stunning beach I have ever visited, which is saying something, as I am in my 70th year." Taransay, the uninhabited island visible from shore, hosted the BBC's Castaway series in 2000. Average property prices on Harris sit at approximately £100,000 to £95,142. Sandbanks in Dorset, the most expensive coastal area in the UK, averages £965,708. One home in Sandbanks costs roughly the same as 5 homes on Harris. Beach facilities amount to basic toilets at the car park, the seasonal cake shed, and almost nothing else. No shops, no cafes, no restaurants. Wild camping is legal. 2 small car parks fill by 9 AM in summer. Luskentyre earned the top position because it represents the single most jarring gap between expectation and reality in British geography. You expect rain, grey skies and pebbles. You find white sand, turquoise water, wild ponies, and near-total solitude at the latitude of Moscow, Caribbean beach physics in North Atlantic temperatures, a donation box and a cake shed for infrastructure, and TripAdvisor data placing it among the 15 best beaches on the planet. Across 19,491 miles of UK coastline sit beaches made of the Earth's mantle, medieval cities buried beneath the waves, islands that vanish with the tide, sand that generates music, and water that glows in the dark. Whether these places represent paradise or logistical nightmares depends entirely on your tolerance for cold water, long ferries, and cake sheds operating on an honesty box. Britain's most expensive coastal property averages nearly £1 million. The cheapest averages barely £100,000. Second home premiums now reach 300% in some Welsh areas. Coastal erosion accelerates year on year. And some of the most beautiful places on the planet are slowly dropping into the sea. These 15 towns exist. The beaches are stranger than anything scripted, and most people, including most British people, will never find them. Subscribe, because the next time someone tells you British beaches are grey and depressing, you now carry 15 data points proving them wrong. Thanks for watching.